Not aware of other members. I know Senator Peters joined us shortly on video, but I'm not sure if he's returning or anyone else. So while I'll tell members that I'm going to do a second round here, and we'll see if anybody else appears for questions. If not, we will close out the hearing. Administrator, one of the issues that we've heard a lot about in the certification process, and it's come up a couple of times, is the fact that the law requires on the change product rule to change the process, and yet I think you're saying that it's going to take years to do that by rulemaking. And yet we still have a process underway for certifying planes. And so what are you putting in place now to make sure that you have the workforce and the people to review that process while a change product rule is in development? Shouldn't the FAA produce like policies to close the loophole in the meantime?
Senator or Chair Cantwell, absolutely. And we are working this on two tracks. We have MITRE doing a study for us on the criteria for significant changes for the change product rule to drive those decision criteria. And we have also stood up the International Authorities Working Group. They've already met several times, and they will continue and should provide recommendations to us by next summer on harmonizing the change product rule across all states of design, so it's consistent regardless of where products are being manufactured.
I'm a little more worried about the right now. I mean, this was a pretty big change in the system that allowed technology to outpace our focus on it. And we don't want to see that happen again. So we don't need anything else to happen to know that we need to put something in place, and it was already asked to be put in place so that we would have it today. So this is the issue if you're producing a plane that is a derivative of a product. And this is the challenge that we face. We were very clear in the law. We said every plane has to go through a systems analysis on anything that's different. So
Chair Cantwell, that is actually happening now. So any critical design component requires validation. Anything that touches human factors, and the additional human factors folks that we've got in the agency are laser focused on that issue. We're also involving them throughout the process, not just to design approval, but also for continued operational safety once the airplane is actually out there flying. So that data is actually coming back and informing the certification process where it wasn't to such a degree before.
Well, back to Mr. Wan, because I do, I think he is trying to get the information in his May 13th letter where he basically said that there was not enough information on the 777-9 on their common core system, their communication system. When you look at this quote from the letter, it is, quote, an integrated modular avionics architecture that provides a set of shared computing, networking, input-output resources to support the computing and system interface needs for multiple airplanes. So it sounds very similar to us saying we want to understand what the software does, similar to the MCAS system. And so my question is, here's somebody who is doing what we asked, and just, for the context, there are more than, I think, thousands of SPIA members. See, these are our professional engineers. In the Northwest, there are friends, there are neighbors. These are people that are working and putting their name behind their product. Or let's say they would like to put their name behind their product, but they need this backup of the FAA. And here we have someone on the ground who's saying, yes, I'm going to make sure that we slow down and look at this. But when we look at the fact that the Boeing Oversight Office, the aviation FAA office overlooking the Boeing manufacturing, has basically been at a static engineering level for decades. how do you expect that we're going to be able to do this oversight and be able to really understand and keep pace with this technology?
Well, Chair Cantwell, it's again, we have increased engineering resources within the BSU, but we're also integrating the Certificate Management Office at Boeing, which oversees the production side of the house, and all the operators that operate Boeing aircraft. We are integrating them so that we can leverage all their expertise in these processes and make sure that the BSU is able to be more effective in its process. In this particular letter, part of what we're dealing with is the issue of what our expectations are for submissions. And that is something that was a very early part of my conversations with Boeing leadership. You've got to give us the full picture. You can't give us a portion of it and then say, well, you'll get everything else next week. So this is just really re-snapping that line to make sure that the applicant that we are overseeing is giving us a complete system picture when they ask for us to move to the next milestone in an approval process.
To Senator Markey's point, I know that there was an EASA repeal of an ODA authority. At what point would you take that step?
Well, at this point, we are, if we saw that they weren't meeting our expectations on a consistent basis, or if we saw anything in their safety management systems or their data where they weren't making the necessary cultural or transparency improvements, then we would go down that path at some point.
Well, we're going to have our own report and our own reporting of what we've been told by various whistleblowers, but it's clear that the process has changed, that this process of collaboration and solving problems is now changed into well, at least from what we've heard, the FAA not even asking the ODA unit members to produce documentation about testing and information. That literally, they just, does it comply, yes or no? So we have to build this workforce. We have to believe in them. They are our early warning system when something is wrong, and you have to back them up. So again, I'm asking you because I don't see the workforce improvement at the Seattle office that you're describing. I think we're at a total of 52 people, 32 of which are engineers. So I don't think that that's changed much over the years. So how have you, since these accidents, improved the Seattle Oversight Office?
Well, again, I will get you the current numbers, but we have increased our resources, and we are. I know because I've sat down with them personally. Our people feel empowered and backed up as they never have been before, and that's helping them to be more effective. Which I think was part of what you were really focusing on in the legislation, the appointment of the unit member advisors is creating a direct communication path to make sure that there's no interference with that line of communication between
not a direct communication path. That simply makes it sound like it's about communication. It is an authority oversight on whether this is going to move forward or not.
But the awareness in terms of what the issues are and not allowing the employer to interfere with issues that are brought forward directly to the agency, that is going to help us be much more informed in our oversight and much more effective.
Well, I look forward to seeing this list of people that you say that you've enhanced the office with. What do you think the skill level is to do certification oversight? What's the skill level and background of the person who heads this up for you at the FAA?
Well, certainly, aeronautical engineers. We need software engineers, and I think that there's a growing need in that area. That was something that that I think with newer platforms, where we're seeing how the systems are interfacing with each other, that it's more and more a part of the architecture of newer model aircraft. And so that's an area that we'll be focused on. Of course, you're always going to have engineers, mechanical engineers and others in other aerospace disciplines, but it is transforming to more of a how do all of these automated systems on newer aircraft interface with each other. And I think as we go into the coming years, we'll need to build our workforce on things like artificial intelligence as well.
Well, you and I might agree on that point about software, because I don't think there's enough attention that's been paid to this, either at the skill level of understanding this, particularly from an oversight and certification perspective, but certainly also at the company. And then when it comes to this issue of overload in the cockpit on various alerts and understanding, particularly, look, I think we've saw this. I think you saw even in your own private background that you had pilots complain about the automation system and the fact that there was so much happening in these automated systems. So the question is, what do you need to do to make sure that we get this automation right? And I think, to me, there seems to be this task that we also outlined in the bill. You know, when you're now doing an oversight of a new software system that's going to be so critical, I would think the FAA would produce a document that says, these are the things that we expect to understand, and that you would get that integrated team that we asked for right now on software, stood up and pounding on the kind of questions that you would want answered from that system. So they're not simply relying on, you know, the information presented. Again, this is a huge transformation that's continuing in aviation, but it's not only in aviation, it's happening in vehicles. This committee is struggling with the same oversight as it relates to unmanned, to cars and other issues. So it's getting your team and getting people to do that oversight now on the technical skill side and getting the right level of workforce. I just don't see that urgency in the FAA's action. So I would ask you to do that and to make that a #1 priority as you move forward.
And Chair Cantwell, it is an extremely high priority, and I will get you that additional insight, that additional
Well,
data.
it's essential to fulfilling the law. Okay, so I have a larger, broader question, which is just about the process. And this is, again, a perfect example of it, this 777 issue. So when you're submitting design data to the FAA for a finding of compliance, shouldn't the applicant certify in writing to the FAA that the submitted data complies with all the available and applicable airworthiness standards?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and if the design does not comply with the applicable airworthy standards, the design should be brought into compliance before the FAA certifies the aircraft?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Well, I don't know that that happens. I'm not sure that that's what's happening. And so, again, if we go back down the system, there were a lot of checks on a list of issues, but not on final compliance with that information. I think that's what's missing the system, and I think we're going to continue to look at that. And I would look forward to hearing your thoughts on how we ensure that compliance really does meet that standard. So very much appreciate your answer on that. Thought we had one more question that we wanted to go over. My colleague, there are two issues on the workforce side. Standing up of the Air Grant program. This is very much similar to the Sea Grant program in getting here on the Hill a professional workforce that is very skilled and knowledgeable in aviation. I'm very proud of my colleagues here today. You can see that many of them have been following this and know specifically, but I think it's easy to say that the oversight of the FAA on this issue needs a more technical staff here on the Hill in addition. And throughout the policymaking realm, I'm very pleased with what the Sea Grant Fellows have been able to achieve because they brought a lot of scientific knowledge to our understanding as it relates to our NOAA oversight or fisheries oversight. So what is it going to take to get that stood up?
Well, look forward to working with you on it. It is, I think it's a great idea, and something that would, I think, improve the collaboration and the communication with the committee, and make sure that we're more effective in our implementation, and frankly, lay a solid foundation for the future, as you said.
Yes. Okay. And the same, I think one of my colleagues may have asked about the same ICAO involvement of going to ICAO and making sure that we're setting the same international standards.
Correct. On pilot training, is that?
Yes, yes, so that we're not going to allow a slippage of the standards set by pilots on an international basis. That we're going to very much understand the manufacturing of planes with integrated software systems, but we're also going to still have a skilled pilot at the helm, 2 pilots who know how to fly the plane if those systems are turned off.
Right, and I think ICAO is important, but we can't rely on ICAO. We've got to help authorities around the world to implement the requirements that we're talking about here, because that's going to really raise the bar in terms of not only pilot training, but also maintenance programs. Anyone operating, in this case, a U.S. product, but any airplane in commercial operation anywhere in the world, we want to work with those authorities. So things like I talked about before, upset prevention recovery training, flight path management. As we implement those beneficial changes in the United States, we want to work through ICAO to get the standard set, but then we also have to go to the individual aviation authorities to make sure that they're implemented consistently around the world.
We want the United States to be a leader
Yes.
on what is required for both the manufacturers and for the skill set that it takes for flying the planes.
Yes.
And so we want the FAA to set that standard here, and we want you to be a loud advocate for it on an international basis.
Could not agree more.
Thank you. According to my information, the DOT OIG report of February of this year said there's only been 1 engineer added to the Seattle office since the MAX tragedies. So I think there's some resolution here of what's really the fact and information, so I'll look forward to getting that information from you. So, so that we can, I just firmly believe that having the right staffing and having your integrated team set up to advise you right now, not waiting a further moment, and clarifying this change product rule process will be critical. Okay, but very much appreciate Mr. Wan doing his job in standing up. So I think that makes the hearing for us today. The record will remain open until December 1st, 2021. Any senators that would like to submit questions for the record and for the witnesses should do so by November 17th of this year. And we ask responses be returned no later than December 1st. So that concludes our hearing. Again, thank you, Administrator, for being here today.